Good evening. This is Shri here along with Dr. Dan.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. So we have the Ryder Cup. I know we're a little late on this, but I think we've been pretty busy with our own golf tournament and tennis also. But let's get down to the Friday matchups. And the Friday matchups, I think we just saw, I think we have, let me just read out the Friday matchups and then I'm going to ask Dr. Dan about who's got the advantage. So for the 7-10, we got the foursomes, and I think in the afternoon they're going to do the four ball, which the pairings won't be released for a while. But for now, 7-10, you got Bryson DeChambeau and Justin Thomas versus John Rahm and Tyler Hatton. And then 7-26, you got Scottie Scheffler, Russ Henley versus Ludvig Åberg and Matt Fitzpatrick. And then you got 742 Collin Morikawa, Harris English against Rory McIlroy and Fleetwood. Looks like it's like what we call is like a throwaway line. But and then Xander, Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay versus Robert MacIntyre and Viktor Hovland. So let's start with your analysis, Dan, about the first matchup between DeChambeau and Justin Thomas versus Rahm and Hatton.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It was when I was looking at all the players on the two teams. I was hoping that Bryson would get paired up against Rory just because of their history. They were going back the last few seasons. They met at the remember at Pinehurst U.S. Open final last year. Had a kind of a contentious final round with Bryson pulling it out with Rory missing a few key putts, and then also this year, as we all know, with the amazing Masters finish, Rory and Bryson started in the final pairing together, and then obviously we know how that turned out. Bryson didn't have a great Sunday, and Rory went on to win the Masters in a playoff over Justin Rose. The rest of the year has kind of fizzled out for Rory, in my opinion. He's kind of been kind of average, and he's kind of disappeared from a few tournaments. Didn't want to play in a few, but anyways, getting back to that pairing of Bryson and Justin versus John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton. These are two tough Europeans. Hatton's had a great year. Played the majors. He's a live tour, but he's played the majors very well. He's probably finished top 10 in two or three of them. And then obviously John Rahm has a great record at the Ryder Cup, career record. I don't have it offhand, but I know he's well above 500, and he does pretty well in the team events. So in this first pairing, I'm going to have to favor the Europeans just because of the track record of Rahm and the year Tyrrell Hatton has had. And then Justin Thomas, I just don't still have full faith in him, unfortunately, even though he's had a good year. I still think he's something just missing. Just that it factor is just not quite there. But I hope he proves me wrong and hope he can get a win, 1 point for the Americans.
Yeah. So foursomes is the one where you play alternate shots. So I mean, DeChambeau, he can still crank it up, and then if Justin Thomas can, get some of his strokes there, I think. Again, with John Rahm, and this is the guy that we every year when we come to majors, we kind of start picking him, and then we have started completely ignoring him to the point that, but he did have a pretty good, if I'm not mistaken, the U.S. Open, I think, right? I mean, he had a pretty good round there. But I think Tyler Hatton is one guy. He should have actually remember the one that J.J. Spawn won. I think that
Yes.
was the one where Tyler Hatton was actually at one point. I think he was within one stroke of the lead, or he was in the lead. But I think to your point about John Rahm and Tyler Hatton, I'm actually going the other way, Dan. I'm actually going to pick Bryson DeChambeau. One thing about him
Yeah.
is that anytime you put the USA hat on him, I think this guy turns into like some different player. And and again, he's been in the top 10 in every major. So I'm actually going to go the other way, where I'm going to pick the Americans to take that first matchup. So quickly getting down to the second one, world number one, Scottie Scheffler and Russ Henley playing against Ludvig Åberg, one of my favorites. Always pick him. And of course, one of the U.S. Open champion, Matt Fitzpatrick and Brookline, Mass. So where do you see this going?
I think the Americans get the point here. I think quite simply, I know I did read Scheffler and Russell Henley have played together at the President's Cup, which is
Right.
U.S. versus the world, right? So yeah, U.S. versus a lot of South Africa and other guy and South America. So Scheffler and Henley have familiarity with each other. They played well together at the President's Cup, and I think this is gonna, obviously Scottie number one in the world. Last year, I think he felt embarrassed. I'm sorry, 2 years ago when they went to Italy and he got 0 wins. He, I think, acknowledged that leading up to the Ryder Cup, he did not play like in the 5 weeks leading up to the Ryder Cup in Italy. And he says if that was a tournament, like a major, he never would have taken that much time off. He was kind of embarrassed about the way he prepared for it, I think. And so I think he wants to redeem himself for what happened in Rome 2 years ago. And I think he's going to make a big statement here. I remember actually that first match, I think in Rome when it was alternate shot 2 years ago. I think they lost like 9 and 8. So
Right.
they basically lost every hole, and the match was over at the turn almost. He was definitely embarrassed by this, and I think he's gonna want some revenge. So I see this one going 1 point to the Americans.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually going to stay the same. Although Ludwig is one guy, remember last year in Rome, he was just phenomenal. I mean, I don't think he lost last year. So I'm a little worried about this for the Americans, even though it's Scottie Scheffler and Russ Henley. But I'm going to stick with the Americans on this one too. So I think I'm going to go both the first two tee times. I'm going to go with the Americans. So the third one is I think I know where both of us are going. We got Rory and Tommy Fleetwood, who had a very heartbreaker at the Travelers this year, was his Collin Morikawa and Harris English. And I think there's some lot of things on when the team was picked that a lot of people felt that Collin Morikawa was probably one of the weaker players in this group. But anyway, he's a two-time major winner. Where do you see this going?
I think this one's going to go big to the Europeans. I think this is one where I would have loved to have seen like Rory and Fleetwood playing against either Scheffler or Bryson, just for sheer star power and just the thrill of watching this one on TV and seeing a lot of the taunting going back and forth too between Rory and Bryson. But maybe we'll get it in the afternoon. I'm sure we'll get it on Saturday, if not tomorrow. Yeah, like you said, Morikawa. There was a lot of controversy whether he should have been on this team. I don't think he had a top 25 or top 30 finish after April of this year. So he struggled of late. His putting has not been good at all this year, really quite poor. And Harris English, he's been a good player this year. He's been solid, but I just don't know. I don't think they've played together before in any team events, so I just don't have much faith in this pairing pulling out a win against two of the top 5 players in the world, in Rory and Tommy. So
Yep.
so I picked the Europeans big in this one.
Nope. Yeah, I'm going to stay with that too. Although there was one thing I was thinking about, in the matchups so far. I know we don't have the matchups for the four ball, but I would have preferred a maybe a Harris English and JJ Spawn there, considering that JJ Spawn actually won a major this year. So that would have been a better pairing. I mean, again, beating Rory and Tommy Fleetwood would have been a tall task for anybody, but I feel that this is going to go to Europe. So right now we are, in my case, I think I have two and one, and I think you have so far two Europe and one Americans, I think, right? So far.
Correct. Yes.
Right. All right. And let's come to the last tee time, 7:58 tee time. You have the Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay, who's been in controversy, as we know, versus Robert McIntyre and Viktor Hovland, and two guys who are pretty good as well. So where do you see this one going?
Yeah, this one I think is gonna be the closest of the four. I think as far as just coming down to the last hole or last 2 holes. Schauffele and Cantlay have had kind of so-so years, nothing really great showing in the majors. We're still waiting for Cantlay to break through at a major and get his first win. Maybe you make the case he's the best player never to have won a major now. He's had a lot of good seasons and he's won several PGA tournaments, but he has not really fared well at the majors still. So we'll see how he does under the bright lights of the Ryder Cup. And then there was obviously the controversy surrounding him the last few years with the not wanting to wear the hat because he apparently it was just he said it didn't fit, but it was I think bigger reasons was that he was protesting the Americans not getting paid for the Ryder Cup, which is now changed. That's a whole other podcast we could talk about if whether these players should be paid and the Americans are being paid and the Europeans not. They're just playing for their quote unquote country. We can make a case or for the continent. Xander's had some injuries early in the year.
Right.
He's come back from them. He's playing better, but he still hasn't really had a great 2025 year thus far. And then going against MacIntyre and Hovland. MacIntyre's had he had a good finish at the U.S. Open, top 5, and he I want to say he's won one or two tournaments this year, other big tournaments. And Hovland has kind of been a little bit still looking for the form that he had from a couple of years ago when he finished well at the PGA Championship. So
Yep.
this one I think close. I'm gonna go with the Americans in a close one. Maybe on the last hole they pull it out, or I can see a half match here too. But I'm not gonna pick the Europeans. If I had to pin me down to an answer or a pick, I'll go with the Americans here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel that, MacIntyre has actually been the best golfer in that group, I think, if you ask me. I mean, Xander obviously coming off an injury, and then we already talked about, I think even we were talking with all our golfing friends, everybody felt that these players should not get paid. I mean, I think even though
Right.
some of the money is sent to charity, but you know what? If Patrick Cantlay can put that aside and then, play a great match tomorrow, everything may be forgotten. So right now, that's where we are. I mean, I think we're in good shape with the Ryder Cup. And we'll get to do I know it's going to be tough to do we don't know the matchups yet. So, but for now, this is our first prediction based on the lineups that were given to us at this point. So, with that, and I think, go back to that. I think I'm going to go with the pairing. I think I'll go with the Europeans there. So
So we're 2-2 overall then.
2-2
yeah.
overall. Yes, I think I have 2-2 overall, where we differ on the first matchup, and then I think the second one, right? I think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. With that, we wrap it up. Thanks again, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Goodbye.